You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to get started today with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's show, we're diving into a football conversation as it relates to some scheduling superlatives. And I want to give our buddy Sam, a Matador Mobster, a shout out for getting the wheels spinning on this one. Was texting back and forth with him last week regarding some of these questions when it comes down to Tech's 2025 schedule. And we'll focus in on a couple of different angles here, Chris. I want to get to discussing what could be some biggest extra credit opportunity. What game will actually prove something to someone as we sit here now? Obviously, those things can change and remain fluid given what teams will rise or fall, but we'll do a little speculating in that direction on today's episode. I also want to get into the one that you cannot lose, the one you cannot drop, the one that could tank your 2025 resume if it were to go the wrong way. And we'll also get into something we discussed a little bit on a previous episode, that being the incoming Big 12 media football poll, which will not be incoming at all. Seems like my idea maybe has some legs. I don't know. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. But Chris, it's always kind of fun to parse over the schedule as we look ahead and pencil in some wins or some losses. And our guy Sam was texting the other day, kind of how this conversation started, asking about what is the most impressive opportunity that we've got in the schedule, in a sense, like which one gives you some extra credit, which one could really get you on a relevant radar. I'll get to that in a second, but I actually want to start with maybe the easier one. I kind of want to start in the shallow end of the pool when we're talking about the one you cannot let get away. I'm focusing in on Big 12 games. Look, obviously some of the non-conference stuff, if it goes the wrong way, that's not a great way to get anything started. But I'm thinking about conference action, and to get the ball rolling, I'm thinking about the Kansas Jayhawks. With all due respect, I know you feel like you got a pulse up there in Lawrence now, but you're coming to the LBK, and you're still the Kansas Jayhawks. Chris, that's the first one that came to mind for me, where I thought, boy, if you stub your toe in this one, it's going to hurt, and it's going to require some bouncing back or possibly some extra credit. We'll get to in just a minute.
Yeah, and you mentioned this is just Big 12 stuff, because that's been a bit of a bugaboo, is the non-conference. You've lost your road non-conference game all 3 years that Joey's been here, and it's kind of created a bit of an awkward tone for your season each year, as you feel like there's this early season hiccup, and while it hasn't affected your conference race at all, it's kind of been a tough pill to swallow. Is that, it was at NC State, then it was Wyoming, and then it was Washington State. And I think the NC State one, that was going to be a tough game no matter what. It was prime time, Saturday night, all those things. But the other two, I think you went into those going, man, we should win this. And then you got upset in one, you got thumped in the other. But I didn't like the vibe that it created. And not all games are created equally, and it doesn't matter in the conference race and all that stuff. But so, yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a great point to make. The pall that it kind of cast over the early season. You've had to bounce back, sort of regather yourself every time.
It just sets it creates doubt, or maybe you weren't as, because I think Joey has taken those lessons, and I think that like they've changed some things. I don't know what, and these are intangibles, but I think they've tried to change some things with their preparation, or will change some things. Maybe that's the best way to phrase it. Maybe there's things that they will change to try to get crisper, better, faster, because of these early season hiccups. And look, that non-conference game is going to be at home this year against Oregon State. They're going to have a good quarterback. It's going to be a scrappy team that'll put some, potentially put some scare into you, but you should be able to handle it. Okay, so we'll gloss over that part. The one I'm going to in this conversation, and again, everything could look. We're talking about this in the middle of the summer, and everything about this conversation could be worlds different at the time that we're playing these games because of injuries. We're like, man, they're a lot better than we thought, or these guys are terrible, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, so all we have to go off of is what we kind of think what it will look like. I'm going to say the one you cannot afford to lose is the game after the Oregon State game. That's the one up in Utah. And yeah, there's going to be, you could talk yourself into a variety of these games, okay? Like for different reasons. You could get into the, oh man, that's a sneaky lull that you could get, lulled to sleep in that one, like UCF at home, Kansas at home, Oklahoma State. We're going to all look at it and go, hey, you should be able to get those guys. Well, are you going to be able to? I mean, you hadn't exactly been able to just beat Oklahoma State, time after time after time. So, but I'm going to say the Utah one. And so a lot of the reasoning would be because of what I just stated earlier about the non-conference. I just think with all these expectations and the fact that Utah is going to be, this is a scary one too, because I think they're going to be semi-legit. Now, how legit? Not sure. But if you lose the first conference game and you're looking at the standings and you're 0-1, I just don't like the tone that it would set. And you're essentially, maybe not realistically, but essentially looking at it going, you can afford almost no more hiccups, no more right out of the gate if you drop the first one. And because I think 7-2 is the minimum you can get in the league race and expect to get to Arlington. And even then, that may come down to some tiebreaker scenarios. There may be 3 teams at 7-2, and so So I think 8-1 gets you there. 9-0 certainly would. But I'm going to look at that very first one on September the 20th, going up to Salt Lake City and taking this defensive line up there and seeing how it matches up against our offensive line. I will say that about this game. I do think if way early, if you get up in that game, I think Utah would be in trouble. I don't know if they would be built to come back based on their lack of proven offensive skill, especially at wideout. So anyways, but yeah, that would be my answer to that one.
I understand your answer. I hate your answer. Game 1? I was at least giving us till October 11th. We're talking about like all this you've had to bounce back from in the non-conference. I mean, Utah, September 20th, we're barely getting our feet wet at that point in time. But I understand the answer. There's no doubt about that. We've talked about it several times this offseason, just how critical that game is going to be for both teams. No question about it. Some of these early ones, and it's just coincidental, these 3 line up right out of the gates. But the other one I was sort of thinking about, Houston on the road.
Oh, yeah.
You go to Houston on the road and you stub your toe or it doesn't go like you want it to, there's going to be some big eyebrows raised in a way that I don't even feel like. If you lose in Salt Lake City, clearly we don't like that. But some will say Utah's back, good team, on the road, blah, blah, blah. You lose in Houston, you're written off and left for dead. I'm sure. I know the math is tough anyway, no matter where you lose early on, but it is Utah on the road, Houston on the road, and then back at the Jones for Kansas. Those are your first 3 conference games. Different dynamics as far as the what we expect to be the competitive quality, I guess, of those teams, Chris. But I probably would have taken any of those first 3 and say, yeah, that's a good answer for this one.
And like when you start talking about scheduling, and you have to remember the ebbs and flows that come with a season. It is lengthy. There's some ups, there's some downs, there's some adversity. There's teams that just don't have it on a week-to-week basis. I'll take you. I'll take you back to Houston last year, hosting like a Kansas State team, and toward the end of the year, and Kansas State rolled into Houston, and it was later on in the year. I mean, remember Kansas State started out last year, I think 7-1, and they finished 8-4.
Yeah.
I remember you rolling up to Iowa State. They are undefeated. They're ranked like close to the top 10, and it's a feel good. And you go in there and go, boom. And then Iowa State kind of like had to figure some things out. Like, so it's just this league is tricky. And you're right. I mean, Houston, they as bad as they were last year. Now, granted, you've got Shield Wood now, and you've got AJ Holmes, certainly, and they've lost some I do think Houston's probably a year away, and I can't remember the exact number of the streak, but I think you've beaten Houston so many times, and you hadn't lost to them since, like, I don't know, the 80s or 90s or whatever it was. So you've got quite the streak there. Well, you know what? I guess the last time you did lose to them was when Mike was there and Brandon Carter threw his helmet through the locker room wall.
Yeah,
or so the story goes.
Someone,
that's right.
Fat little girlfriends and what.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But
hey, good news for Houston though. Last time that Tech had a long streak or a lot of wins over a number of decades against a conference foe, that foe went on to win conference titles, have a Heisman Trophy winner. They then burned the program down entirely. But shout out to the Baylor Bears, who didn't win for 20 years against Tech, and then all of a sudden, hoisting hardware, and we don't have to tell the rest of the story. Okay, would love to hear from you out there, your answer on that one. As for the next one, Chris, an extra credit opportunity, and maybe extra is the wrong word to use or the wrong way to look at it, but it is the biggest opportunity to make an impression on your resume. I wondered if some might go back and point to the game that you just mentioned in Salt Lake City for that answer, but I think to me, first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel's the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Again, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Given what this program has been historically and how difficult it's been for you to win here, I'm going to November 1st, and I'm going to the Kansas State Wildcats in Manhattan, Kansas. What everybody is by November, I have no idea. But that's what I'm looking at as I sit here today.
Yeah, it's one of two, man. It's either in Tempe or Manhattan. I think you need to, if you want to play in Arlington, you've got to win one of those two. You may have to win both of them. And again, we don't know what those teams will be or what you'll be at the time that they're being played or what the dynamics are around the league or anything like that. I can envision a scenario to where if Kansas State beats Iowa State on August the 23rd, they are at that point the front runner and would be looking at the game versus Texas Tech as like, okay, we've got to go to Waco, and then we get to host Texas Tech. These are the most important games, kind of thing. If they lose that game against Iowa State right out of the gate, they may have no margin for error, or they could mail it in and be like, okay, they could just be semi-average. Who knows? But I do. And then there's the whole dynamic about you've just struggled there. That's why I totally agree with you on the extra credit part. I mean, when's the last time you won up there? Mid 2000s, I think. Was it like
a Ron Prince game? Have you even won since?
Honestly,
don't know. I mean,
Mike was the coach. It was 06. Trey Haverty was playing, so it may have been 05, 06, somewhere around in that range. But I miss Ron Prince. I wish Ron Prince would have been the head coach at Kansas State for a long, long time. He was good to the rest of the league, wasn't he?
Yes,
then
he
they had to go bring the Bill Snyder, one of the greatest of all time.
The guy's got the name on his stadium. That's never good.
Yeah, and a statue, and that little white note card that he'd come down there and watch your team warm up, and I'm like, God, what is he writing, man? It's just stressing me out. Like he clearly sees some holes in our prep here. What is he going to pick us apart on?
He's finding something. Yeah.
Yes, on the tiniest little sheet ever. Those glasses and that windbreaker. But the other one. So, you know what? I probably would tend to agree with you that this is probably the answer I was going to give. But for purposes of the conversation, so it's not boring here, I'll say October the 18th in Tempe. And here's why. Because the way you phrased the question was, what game would you get the most bump?
Yeah,
I just think the team that won it and is the defending champs, and you're at their place, and it's still going to be early enough in the season where they're going to still be in it. I think they have to go to Waco, which is a tricky game for them. I can't remember what else they have before that, but I think they may be the highest ranked team in the preseason. So you're talking about, bump, and like, Kansas State, if they lose to Iowa State, they may not have that bump to give you at the time you play them. I don't know, but those are the two. It's 1 and 1A, whatever. And I just think looking at it right now, I think you've got to figure out a way to win one of those, if not both. That would go a long way to getting you to Arlington and then not have some of these hiccups along the way, like we've talked about.
You haven't beaten Kansas State anywhere on earth since 2015. You have not beaten Kansas State on the road since 2008.
Okay, it was 08. Okay, sorry.
Damn those purple people.
Yeah.
They have been tough on us. And they're really just irritating because typically Kansas State is the kind of team that for about 3.5 quarters, they let you feel like you're in it. Oh, it's just one possession. And then they win by 10 or 13. And you're like, wait, how did that happen? Oh, it was a punt return touchdown, or it was a pick six, or it was a kickoff return touchdown. It's always some excruciating way.
Some untimely penalty, right. Like that. The Bill Snyder kind of had that effect on, like, my guys don't do wrong. Like, what are you talking about? How dare you say that he was holding? This is the Kansas State way. Emaw, damn it. Right. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like when Wells was there one year, like Trey Wolf was on the list for Lou Groza Award Watch list. And you go up there and it's like he missed, two very manageable kicks that should have been, for the most part, easy for him. But yeah, it's just like this strange vortex of, and I have said on some other things I've done about that particular game, I think this is one of the positives about a lot of the newcomers you've brought into your program. They don't have any of that scar tissue. They don't know. They don't care. They don't. It doesn't matter to them. They were part of none of that. So I think that while pushing all these new pieces together and saying, "Oh man, we have culture. Do we have buy-in? Do we have all the intangibles?" That's one of the positive things, is like they don't. I don't know anything about this Kansas State Texas Tech history. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here to win and win right now. And Wabash cannonball yourself to death, but I'm not really worried about what happened in 2008 or when Bill Snyder was here, or that we miss Ron Prince around here. I mean, they don't care. And so I think that is a positive. It'll get talked about that week, certainly, and you and I will talk about it. But us. Yeah, that's right. But for a lot of these new pieces, they won't. They won't have anything to do with that.
It's amazing to think what a house of horrors that's been for you. But Kansas State's been one of the Big 12's best programs for quite a long time now. So hopefully flipping that script here very soon. Would love to hear from you. Sound off in the YouTube comments. Shoot us a text if you're a Matador mobster on these things. Before we get out of here, Chris, I did want to get some thoughts from you regarding the Big 12 Conference essentially deciding to do nothing at all whenever it comes to their football preseason media poll. I think it was just 2 or 3 episodes ago. I called it an exercise in futility for very serious sports journalists to be very serious about their sports journaling. It's not really something I've ever been all that dialed into, other than knowing when the season is done, you can almost always look back at the poll and see something that was way wrong. A lot of times Kansas State occupied one of those spots in, say, a preseason poll, and then they wind up in a much different category. So I will not miss it. I could not care any less that it's gone, but some seem to. What did you make of this? Was this a surprise to you, and why do you think we had this decision made?
Well, of all the polls out there and the lists out there and the predictions out there, this was always the one that everybody referred to. This is the one that coaches get asked about. This is the one you and I reference, the whole Arizona State example, prime example there. And as I told you on a recent episode, I think that this process is always, or was always, very flawed. Who participated? What media? Like, who didn't participate? Was the ballot available to everyone? What's the criteria for getting a ballot? I mean, and it used to be if you were attending Big 12 Media Days, you were on the list and you would get said ballot. But then many years you had to write it down and fax it in or scan it and email it instead of just doing an electronic version. It was always a bit cumbersome and way harder than it needed to. And some years 62 people would vote in it. Some years 112 would vote in it. I mean, you just never knew what you're getting. And then the league has changed a bunch. So I think it's a good thing in a way, unless you were going to figure out a way to do it right and to get participation. I mean, I think I would have thought that would have been a positive. Now they're still going to have an all Big 12 preseason team, and to which I would say that needs to be modernized as well. You don't need a fullback on there. They put on there like two receivers. I mean, everybody's trotting out 3 and 4 starting receivers now. Some people don't even have tight ends. So some of that needs to be looked at and modernized as it relates to the positions available for these all preseason teams. Now, my question will be: will they still do like the Big 12 coaches poll? In other words, where the coaches get to vote on this deal and they don't get to vote on their own team? I think I would be curious to see what that would look like. Certainly. But why don't we just take this a step further? They're really, and this is a pro Big 12 stance. I certainly agree with that it would be better for the Big 12. And I don't know if I'll ever get my wish here. They really should just do away with all preseason polls. The AP, the coaches poll. Yeah,
let's go. You're scratching me where I itch now.
Yeah, because they're wrong. They don't know, especially in the NIL and the portal era. You're basing it off of what you think or what they did last year. These teams are dramatically different, and it puts a league like the Big 12 at a severe disadvantage. Because if you're not included or you're not included high enough, some of that's hard to overcome. And it was nothing that you did. I mean, look at BYU last year. They were totally off the grid. They start winning. They win 11 games. And there was too many people just pointing to it going like, I'm still not ready to buy in. This is what I thought about them in July. And, they won 11 games and they finished 17th in the final ranking or whatever. But there was some times where they just weren't getting any kind of benefit of the doubt. And so if you're sitting here, you hope that you are ranked as high as possible in the preseason because it's easier to climb. It's easier to get back in it. If you drop one, you don't fall as far. I mean, all the things. And
sure.
It's certainly a disadvantage that the Big 12 has because the nod goes to the Blue Bloods and the nod goes to the Big 10 and the SEC programs more often than not.
It's I can only describe it as something. I'm trying to remember the phrase. Something circle. It was something similar to a movie Steve Martin starred in once upon a time. Circle something. There's a descriptor for it. I can't remember what the entire interaction is throughout the year when you're talking about media members. Well, I thought this in July and August, so obviously I must maintain this track of logic throughout it is the bane of the college football existence. The preseason polls. I didn't know you were going to bring that up, but I could do a whole nother episode on this. I got heat in the can for days regarding preseason polls. Why? For what? And I know that every network wants one out there to describe on various talking head programs. I guess they can come up with their own, but I feel like that preseason polls should be outlawed. And if you try to get together a preseason poll, that maybe the Gestapo should be knocking on your door and send you to a re-education camp. Just my thoughts. Maybe that's a little harsh. I don't know. But I would love to see that actually come to pass. And it's sort of why for so long, Chris, I've thought postseason-wise, you've got to err on the side of casting a bigger net and getting too many teams as opposed to too few, because there are always a collection of teams out there who are suffering through no fault of their own, like you're just describing, from the results of a preseason slotting by pencil pushers across America. Back in the day, whenever I was on local yokel radio, I used to do a segment during college football season called Who's Screwing Up College Football This Week? And it was very easy to go out and you see everybody's ballots, everybody voting. And there were always guys to identify, like, did you watch a game this weekend? I mean, It's just an exercise in futility. I'll go back to the phrase I already used, or circle something. It'll come to me, I think.
It's flaw. Because you said Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So I did.
Is it The Jerk? I can't quite remember which movie I'm thinking of.
I mean, and one of Steve Martin's famous quotes is "Be so good they can't ignore you," and so maybe that's what everybody needs to
There you go.
out of there too. But yeah, it's in every aspect. The preseason poll is extremely flawed. Some would call it a necessary evil, like we got to have it. I mean, I don't know why, but it's again, I'm coming at it from the Big 12 or the Texas Tech stance, and I think that because I mean, Joey was even talking about how that's why the bowl game was important back in December. Like, hey, this is very important because it sets us up for next year. It's your backups versus Arkansas's backups. Like, how stupid is that? And so that's he gets it. He understands that that's the game that's played. And so, are you going to get a bunch of credit for having a big time portal class? Are you going to get a bunch of credit because the video game people think your team is going to be one of the top 15 teams in the country? I mean, I don't know, but I mean, maybe you've been able to change some of the dynamics. But again, I would even say that. How dumb is that?
I know.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been seeing that come across. Who could give a rat's posterior?
Oh, you'd be shocked.
About a video game? Oh, I saw Tech. They're pimping it on their social media. Every program across the country is like, "Oh, EA thinks we're rated 88."
And the kids certainly weight that heavily. The players. I think. I mean, I kid you not that. I swear this was a true story. If this is some AI thing that I was hosed on, excuse me, but. I swear this was a real quote that one of the NBA draft picks who kind of tried to maneuver his way to a certain place or away from it thought that well, that's how you do it in the video game. So why, like the NBA 2K thing, so why can't, and they had to explain to him and you're like, yeah, dude, like this is like the real life thing. So who knows? But I digress. I wanted to believe it. But anyway, it just made me laugh. But the video game stuff, man, it's serious business to some of these folks.
No doubt. Doesn't it also, just before we get out of here, I think the preseason voting gear grinding in particular has to do with some of our neighbors who are reserved an esteemed spot year after year after year after year. And typically the University of Texas is not one I've taken so much issue with, but our friends in Bryan College Station will make a lofty appearance again on a preseason ranking and then go 7-5 if they're lucky. And I think part of that has also been the rub on just why it's so frustrating to see year after year after year us turning to the San Jose Mercury News to figure out exactly who's going to run college football this year. I remember that. I can't remember the guy's name, the jagwagon that was there, but it was like the San Jose Mercury News AP voter every week.
John Wilner?
Is it Wilner? That was the name that was coming to mind. It could be John.
Okay,
Wilner.
I mean, I think that was.
I don't want to besmirch John if it wasn't him at that time. This is
fair.
like 15, 20 years ago. But
then maybe not. I've never met him. I just know that I believe that may be the outlet that he pins for. So
think of your local AP sports writer, and you probably have no clue who that actually is for your paper or whatever. But I've met some of them. I don't know how they wound up there. I really, it's like badminton was there.
It's also like a Heisman vote. How do there's like 2,000 or something people that get to vote on the Heisman? Like why? Like nobody's watching all of these players. You just vote on the people in your region and who you like, and it's so much of this is
we're airing voting grievances. On today's episode, lodge your voting grievances in the YouTube comments or shoot us a text if you're a Matador mobster. All right, we better wrap it up because I could just go on grieving for hours, Chris, about the way college football's world is run. Appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Looking forward to a freedom vibe kind of week, and we'll see you for the next one.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Keep hope alive, everybody. And don't vote on stuff that you shouldn't vote on. Right? Yeah. Good advice out there.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the Matador Mob and the Everydayers for always being out there. Hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text and straight to your phone. And thank you to our boy Sam for spurring on this conversation here today. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.